Oh.
Hey everybody, welcome. Thank you for getting unfiltered and intentional with us. We are live. We're going to be talking about police shootings. I hate to say it's the hot topic, but unfortunately every day it's something new. Every month, every year, it's just popping off. Before we get into that whole realm, I just want to say thank you for tuning in now, later, year from now. Specs, tell them what to do.
Hey everybody. So we need you to like and subscribe and share. Very simple. We need you. You need us. We speak for you. You speak to us. But we need you to help us. Like, share, comment. We do need your voice. So like, share, comment, like, share. Thank you.
Subscribe. Yes, thank you. No, okay. and thanks, Specs and Ty and Liz for joining. It's really crazy what's going on in America. A lot of people saying, "Hey, we've had enough," but unfortunately, I mean, I know people that are older, my senior, and they've been saying they had enough. You know, we're just joining in. You know, this is really, really crazy. But we're going to be talking about police shootings. This is part one. Part one is just talking about the stuff that we know, the stuff that how we feel, our experiences, the trigger points, the questions that we have. Part two is going to talk about, we're going to actually have some police officers come on and speak with us, talk about their training, because I didn't know that they were trained to shoot center mass, not to shoot in the foot or shoot in the leg or something to that effect. But all the different things that we just don't know about policing, they'll come on and they'll educate us, you know, and see how we can kind of partner and work together as much as we can, you know, because every little bit happens. But I want to start off, and Liz, thank you for even directing the conversation. We were talking prior to the show starting about our experiences and the different things that has happened to us, or the caveat that changed us. Like, my God, this is just out of hand. You know, a lot of us remember Rodney King, and we'll talk about that that incident shortly. But have you personally, Liz, and then Specs, Ty, have you guys actually had to deal with a police officer or seeing somebody that you know be harassed, killed, abused by a police officer?
You're asking Liz first?
Okay, so
Liz was like, "What? Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Okay, you're on this.
Here's where we go, right? Thankfully, what I call brutalized or killed. No, I haven't personally seen that firsthand. Harassed? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And definitely, like 100%, everything in me knows it's racial profiling. Look, I am lead-footed. I know I break the law pretty much every day. Don't tell anybody, you know. And so if I get pulled over and it's a justified reason, I don't think everything is race. I'm not that person that goes, "Oh man, it's because I'm, you know, person of color," or anything. I'm not that person. But when it does happen and it's blatant, yeah, that's a little bit different. So, you know, where I work, putting it out there, I work at the Florida Mall, right? And so not in the mall, but in that general vicinity. It's a very, very busy side of town in Orlando. It's extremely busy, right? And so, and it just so happens that where I work, my parking spot that's almost just available for me all the time is directly next to the spot that we have reserved for the police officer. Should, you know, we ever need to, they're always around, you know what I mean? And I park next to them every day. And I say that, you know, because I work there, I park there every day. I drive a semi-decent car, you know what I mean? And I go through the same intersection in a year, at least, at a minimum, 600 times a year. But one day, the one time my husband happened to be driving my car, and you know, for those of you that don't know, I know Kia knows my husband, but you know, that everybody does. My husband is about 6 feet tall, but knocking on about 300 pounds. You know, he's very muscular. He's a big, darker skinned, you know, individual. And the one time he's driving my car to the same parking lot, to the same space, we happened to get pulled over. And for what? No kidding. She said, you stopped at that stop sign too long, and that seems suspicious. You stopped at the stop sign too long? Like, I mean, that, and again, because you guys don't know the area, it's a four-way, it's a two-way stop sign where a four-way should be. And there's an accident at that intersection, really bad accidents, because people assume that there's a four-way stop sign and there isn't.
Right.
If you're coming this way, you stop and you wait until, if it's 20 cars going through, and again, it's the mall, you just let them all go through because you do not have the right of way. Understand that literally about 20 cars went through that day because it was a weekend, it's Sunday evening at the mall, you know, and we stopped. Had we gone through at any point before that, they would have pulled him over for not seating the right of way. So we stopped, and we stopped too long, because you stop too long at a stop sign and it seems suspicious to me. But I drive my car every day through the same intersection, make the same stop. I've never once been stopped.
Wow. And just to add to that, and that right there would be the moment in time where your husband is like, what am I going to do? And what I mean by that is because it could be something as simple as, oh, I don't know, I was scratching my leg, that's why I stopped too long. You know, is there any issue, officer? Or what happens if Alistair was having a bad day? Can I help you? No, yeah, I was sitting there too long. What is it to you? And here's the kicker. A lot of times, like, why don't you be respectable? You as a actual civilian, you as a person in the street, you have a right to be grumpy. Poor Sandra Bland. You have a right to smoke a cigarette in your car. You have a right to do certain things. I don't want to turn my music down. I want to have, if I could still hear you and we're having a conversation, and it's the crazy. And a lot of people say, I don't want to talk about race. I don't want to talk about race. I have seen white women spit in police officers' face. And a lot of times, like, I'd rather get punched than spit on. Can you imagine spitting on somebody? I could never even imagine. Like, if you spit on somebody, Liz, if you spit on a police officer, Ty, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you here on the podcast. I'd be talking to you maybe, you know.
I wouldn't be talking to us at all, maybe.
Right.
but that's the thing. But that's the thing. I mean, and it's crazy because we have to make those comments. We have to literally sit and be like, how are we going? Are we going to get home today? We have to decide. You can't be who you are. And I think that's one of those things about privilege. You are not able to comfortably be who you are. I'm slunched back. I'm like, yeah, talking to the officer. What do you mean? What is this language, the body language you're showing me? Which gives, and that's the thing about policing. It's about what I suspect, how I feel. And if you have that authority based off of a feeling, well, goddamn, we're all screwed. Because I feel right now that Specs, he got something going on. Specs ain't really paying to see how I'm feeling. And he's like, wait, what? You know what I'm saying?
I'm listening to you.
Yeah.
When you're speaking, I've been married before. When you're speaking, I'm listening. I can't be like, yeah, what? No, so
let me ask you this question, Specs. Have you had a personal encounter where, you know, you were harassed or you seen someone that you loved harassed by a police officer?
Well, my first one when I was 8, we went to Florida because I'm from DC. So we went to Florida on a church Florida trip. So it's like, I think like 3 days down and 3 days back. And you spend like 2 days there. So we're in North Carolina one of the nights and we're in a pool. So I'm 8 and I remember this. So we're all in the pool. I don't swim. So I'm kicking the water and the cop comes up and there's a white couple comes up. And the cop says, y'all have to leave because this couple doesn't want any nigger water. And my mom, there was this guy trying to talk to my mom, and he looked real angry, like he wanted to say something. And I remember her put her hand on him and said, don't, please don't. And he sat back down, and we all had to get out the pool. So that was the first time I remember. And the cop looked, he was really stern because I was, only time at that point I ever seen police officers was officer friendly, that they should come through my school. Mm-hmm. And then the cops used to come to my house all the time. And that's a whole nother story. So when I saw him, he looked intimidating. And I was like, okay, because I knew to listen, and then we all. And other than that, it's just been like the regular. You know, they stop you at the bus stop when I was a kid, and and you know, like sit on your hands or sit down and sit on the curb, and you know, that was regular. So you know, but I think 8 was my defining moment. But other than that, it just been like regular stops or, you know, somebody yelling at me in my face. But I was ready for that already, you know.
Okay. What about you, Ty? Have you had a personal experience, or maybe you've seen someone that you love or know, and you've seen something?
I know we're unfiltered. However, I'm not going to go into the story that I really want to go into.
Okay, that's fine.
To be respectful of other people that may not want that information out there as well.
Okay.
However, my personal story, there's always many, right?
Yeah.
But I was going through some car troubles, and I bought this. I called it like the booger car. That's what I called it. It was like old, beat up. It was just a bad looking car. So I remember I was sick. It was during the winter time, and I was leaving from Middletown going to the house in Poughkeepsie to check to see if there was still oil in the tank. And I had a hoodie on, but a hat under it. And I'm, just driving. I get pulled over by the cops, the state police, purple ties to be specific. And the cop said to me, once he realized I was a female, we're having this discussion. He told me that he thought I was a male, and he pulled me over because I looked like I stole the car.
What?
Yeah. I looked like I stole, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, officer, do you see what this car looks like? Do you think to steal the damn car? But the simple fact that it started off that he thought I was a man of color is the first indicator that caught his eye. If he realized I was a female of color in the same car, I'm going to assume, because it didn't happen, so all I could do was assume that he would have never pulled me over. But he thought I was a black male, and that looked like the car had to be like an 1842 something with things hanging off. It looked like it was burnt on once. It was not work. It was a car that you would just give away. Be like, no, here you go. But yeah, so I just wanted to speak of that particular experience again, because it was verbalized that because he thought I was a black man, that I was stopped. So and then it escalated to the stealing of the car. So it went from one thing to another.
So before I get into my story, I know we have one comment so far that says police had a shotgun to my head. I can go on and on. I've never been arrested. Then he puts FTP for the show's sake. I think that stands for French fries, tater tots, and potatoes. We are unfiltered. We are unfiltered, but we are on platform. So French fries, tater tots, and potatoes. Thank you for abbreviating that. But with that being said, I can understand of you wanting to talk about your starches. So my own personal experience. And I shared this one time. I was 18 in New York, and I was going out with some friends to a club, and it was a robbery. Police pulled us over, guns cocked straight to my head, told us to get out the car. We fit the description of some guys that just robbed a gas station. And I think for me, that made me not like the police ever since that time happened, because literally I have a big gun cocked. It's like I make one move, I'm dead. To my head. Living in New York City, I've always been surrounded by police officers. I think New York City police officers definitely have an arrogance to them. They are not the gentle suburban type of police officers. I remember when you say, hello, how you doing? Here's my license and registration. They will throw that shit right back in your face, like literally throw it in your face. I mean, I can go on and on and on about it. But once again, when you grow up in certain environments, and I always say that the police a lot of times can get desensitized and they treat everybody the same. The criminals, the good people, they're all in the same neighborhood. You're all going to get treated the same way. And unfortunately, this is how we were raised. And I've had terrible experiences with police officers. But at the same time, working in social services and seeing a lot of different terrible situations, I have respect for the cops and the things that they do, because I can tell you, for everybody that says, hey, this is how I truly feel about a police officer, when they're in a jam, something's going on, emergency situations. Think about all the 9/11s and the Boston bombing and all these different terrible things. Mm-hmm. You wasn't calling your homie to help. You was calling, some type of other police agency, some federal agency for help. So definitely, and that's why you hear that concept. There's a bad apple, in the bunch. But I'm thinking, is it actually the tree that's bad completely? Do you think that we should defund the police, or do you feel that it's an individual type of thing? Like, okay, they are just these one-off situations. What do you guys feel? Defund the police, the whole thing? I see Liz looking at her like,
I think the whole defund the police, abolish the police line. I know that's an unpopular opinion. I do. But, where I grew up, at that time, the problem was getting the police to show up. I don't know if you guys remember that, but, they could sell you a house back then based on what the approximate response time was on the police. And in our neighborhood, it was, an hour and a half. I'm talking about body dead in the street, laying, blood everywhere. You can call as many times as you want to. They were not coming. You know what I mean? And so the whole fight back then was, where they at? You know what I mean? So I'm old enough to remember calling them and them not responding. That now I kind of feel like if you call them, they're like, oh, didn't you want to defund this? We ain't coming. I don't know that that's what we want. I think that it needs to be fixed a lot. I think it needs to be revamped. We could tear it down and build it back up. I have no issue with that, but defunding or abolishing, or I have issues with that.
Go ahead, Spice.
Well, defunding the police is not about like them going away, because that's abolishing. See, defunding is more talking about, you call the police for a lot of things they aren't trained or equipped for. So let's say there's a social issue or there's a domestic issue. A lot of times you don't need police. So when you send them, they're going in gun blazing because they're police. You need social workers. There should be a social team. So what they're saying is, take some of that money from tanks that you give the police and have more social like outreach and social numbers. So when you call, you don't necessarily have to call them for something that's not an emergency. So a lot of times people call because somebody is on drugs and they're tripping out. So you call the police. They're not equipped for that. That's not why you call the police. But there's no in between. So you call them and they're coming with guns blazing. So there needs to be a whole different program of, this person is tripping out. I think they're ODing. So let me call this. But right now you call the police, that person is like, so they shoot him.
But can I challenge that a little bit too? Because when you think of a social worker, I mean, whatever you picture when you think of a social worker, I don't picture a bouncer. And when you do have somebody that's fairly big looking, that is tripping out on drugs, or heaven forbid, like a 16-year-old that's severely autistic or something like that. These are big kids. Are you really gonna call, little Miss Susie, social worker, to come do that? Actually, the police are fine to call them and not show up guns blazing.
Can I just say, they do that in schools? When those same kids are in schools at that size and they're having a breakdown, they go to the social workers or the counselors, because that's what that sector is trained to do. Sometimes when you're having a meltdown, the last thing you want to do is see a police officer who is not trained and aware of how to deal with people in very specific situations. Maybe not that they shouldn't be called, but maybe they should have someone with that specialty go along with them. So now you have like a dual resource to help not only the police, but the other specialists and the person that the police are being called on.
I want to say I was trained to do that before. In DC, in special needs buses, I used to be an attendant. So when you're an attendant, what they do is, let's say you got 8 kids on the bus. You go through classes of what certain special needs are. So then, let's say you get on a bus, you get a little thing on each kid saying this kid is a runner, this kid is this is that. So they will pair you with your comfortability and how strong you are to certain buses, because they're like, okay, this kid's a runner, so you need to restrain them. So you are trained to do that. So I've done that before. So it's possible. So my thing is, the bus driver can be like, they're going crazy, call the police, or you train somebody to be like, this kid is this kid is that, but just extend that. Now, let's say somebody is really going crazy. Let that person then call the police. They should be in the whole thing, be like, all right, you have firefighters, you have police, you have the social, and if the police come and there's a fire, they call the fire department. If somebody's not breathing, they'll give you CPR, but they call the EMTs. There should be a level for that. So once you take the money from the tanks and you put it towards that solves a lot of problems. And that's defunding the police, not taking all that money away. Nobody's really saying that knows about the subject.
So I find it interesting because when you mention Ty, well, in the school, you have the officer come in, and then you may have, different people, they'll have counselors. I've seen videos where a child's getting thrown, but there's a social worker right next, the guidance counselor, like, no, we need to take little Timmy out, or little Tasha, or whatever. So it didn't make a difference if they had someone else with them. They're going to still do them. And I think what needs, and maybe it's the terminology that we're using, defunding the police or all these different things. I think the main thing that we have to do is reconstruct those unions, because when a shooting actually takes place, they go straight home. They don't talk to nobody. Everything is bump, 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 because they got to take care of their own. I think that code of blue has to go. I always compare the code of blue versus the actual military, because the military, we're going to put you on blast the same way we did with that guy who was the drill sergeant who was harassing a young Black kid walking down the street. The command sergeant major, let me tell you about this guy. He is wrong. He is this. He is this. The police officers, of course, are like, they have to look at all the evidence first, and then they'll say if someone's wrong, if they do that. But that one thing that they have to change is that if I feel, because feelings are so subjective. I don't know what the hell any one of you are feeling right now, but I can make an assumption. And if I'm making my assumption off of the way of someone's look, their shape, their size, their smell, whatever the case may be, what I'm saying? Like, anything goes. I literally have dealt with police officers, and just because they're feeling some kind of way, you end up getting screwed. That feeling has to go. And I think that we have to find some way where we're able to change that. And that's why I can't wait to part 2. I wish part 2 was actually now, because I have to find out what is in those books that we're teaching the police. Oh, go ahead.
My thing with that is, how is it that our military will get this correct and our police get it so wrong? And as a society, we are cool with that. And our military deals with crazy threats all over the world, and they're held to this standard. But the police, we're kind of like, So I don't understand how this is still a thing.
Right.
Now, my military was some shit. I get that, and the police. But the military is such a high standard. And once that guy did what he did, they're looking at him, he's suspended, he's this. The police are like, oh, well, so the disconnect for me is crazy. Why not look at the military? We have an institution that has a standard. Why not just look at them and be like, how can we be more like that? Now, they don't need to take over the police, but how can we look at that? We have a standard. we already have it set in place. Let's hold the police like how the military.
I think, and anybody who's listening who's also affiliated with the military, please chime in. But for me, from what I know about the military, having served, I think that, you know, that standard is so high because we don't interact with civilians at all. And it's funny because if you got us all in a room, no, seriously,
that's what I'm thinking.
If you got the military people together, and even I'm gonna take my own son. So my son graduates from boot camp and he graduates from the training, the AIT school that he went to in the Army. Once he got out, he literally was like, "Oh my God, the standards of civilians are so low compared to what the military, you know, has embedded in him." And I don't know. I think that it has to be some type of change. I don't know why, but if you have people who don't care, see, I think the military is not even per se, I care or I don't. It's a job and a mission. It has to be completed. So on that end, that's what we're looking at. It is a task, and the task has to be completed up to these standards of professionalism. The police officers, you kind of have those feelings again. I like her, but I don't like him. You know, and these different things. And when you have those ideologies, you can definitely get them all confused. Now, don't get it twisted. There are definitely racist military people in the military. There's a lot of sexism in the military. But what I can say about that difference, once again, is the fact that once it gets pointed out and found out, we will put that ass on blast. Like, we're gonna come and get you. You don't tear us and our name down.
Right.
You want to read that, Ty?
Yeah. So we have Cash. Police has unions and the military doesn't.
That part. Right.
And the unions are ran by civilians, unfortunately.
Right. I mean, Kia, though, to what you were saying, the military, I'll argue that the military does run into civilians, right? If you are in the Middle East and you are going from door to door in houses looking for terrorists, they go in those houses and they have all kinds of guns and weapons and everything. They are behind enemy lines and they're going through these houses, house by house, and they're not shooting everything that moves. There is a level of discipline, and you can't tell me they're not afraid. You can't tell me they don't think that they're, chances are they're in harm's way and everything else. And still, if nobody says shoot, they don't shoot. That's kind of how that works.
Well, and that's what the key word that you said was discipline. You're not doing things arbitrarily. My mission is to take out subject A. My mission is not to take out subject A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3, and then maybe the friend too. It's just subject A. And nothing will stop that mission. You know, now some people say, oh my God, the military could be so heartless because mission driven and I don't care. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the same way you'd have an actual corporation and HR has these high standards. Zero tolerance for, sexual harassment, zero tolerance for this discrimination and this. While you may have the manager just willy-nilly and just kind of doing these things, is because they were just the level of job description. It's not there. I wanted to go ahead and talk about, of course, what even got us going in the first place, about this young man who got shot just recently. He was only 13 years old. Adam, how do you pronounce that? Toledo. 13 years old, 7th grade. And unfortunately, if everybody here has seen the video before we start talking about it, if you haven't seen the video, you see a police officer chasing this young man, I guess per se in the alleyway or like a street type setting. It was dark. I think it was really early in the morning, the wee hours of the morning.
2 o'clock.
And the police officer then says, freeze and the whole nine, and gives him a command, put the hands up. And the young man drops the weapon, turns and puts his hands up. As soon as he does that, the police shoots the young guy, the teenager,
the young 13-year-old boy in 7th grade.
So there has been a lot of back and forth about this because it wasn't and we'll be true about it, it wasn't as black as white as the George Floyd. Like we could clearly see for 9 minutes that he was doing this, and people were saying stop, stop, stop. But in this situation, this young guy has a gun. He is running. He drops the gun. The police give him a command. He follows the command. But the next thing is the next. He does follow the command.
He does follow the command.
Yeah. He gets caught. Turns around the gun and drops it.
No.
So he dropped the gun and ran.
No, hold on.
He dropped the gun and then ran, right?
No, not that way.
He dropped the gun
when he turned.
Before he turned.
Yeah, so I'm running. Yeah, so I'm running. I drop the gun while the man's screaming at me, to stop.
As he's screaming, drop it.
Yeah.
He drops it. He says, turn around, right? Turn around and put your hands up.
Put your hands up, yeah.
And that's what he does.
And then he puts his hands up. So here's the So
that's not the picture I saw.
No, the video. It's the video.
I mean, no, I'm saying when they stopped it and showed he had the gun. He spit around. But here's the thing. So here's the thing.
Well, I just want to ask the question real quick before. So let's just say, and of course we can pull up the video. We got it on our phones for Pete's sake.
Right.
We got it so close to our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say he drops the gun right before he turns around, or in the process. Because if I'm holding something and you tell me put your hands up, I gotta drop it, right? Because then I'll be holding a gun. So at the end of the day, when he actually took the shot at the kid had nothing in his hands at the moment of incident. The question that I have is, once a police officer makes a command, at what point does he let that actual perp obey that command? I've seen in so many different times where you'll have a police officer say, stand up. The other cops say, sit down. We're like, well, shit. Now, if I stand, I sit. Now, what the hell? Y'all gonna black my damn ass. Of course, the situation's different. It wasn't contradicting each other. Yeah. It's different. But at the same time, and please, and the audience too, if you're chiming in, the kid drops the gun, turns around. It's kind of like in mid-motion. So I'm turning around, I'm dropping my hands up. But instantly the cop shoots. When was the police officer going to let him obey that command without shooting him?
Okay, 13-year-old. I grew up in the street. I'm tell you something. If you running with a gun and a cop catch you running with a gun, you're going to get shot.
Okay.
Right.
That's just the thing. Drop the gun, run. Drop it. But if you running with a gun, you don't get shot. Like what? And this is somebody that's not a cop. If that same situation, I'm thinking, of course he's gonna shoot him. Why wouldn't he shoot him? You still have the gun, and it's so happening so fast. I'm still seeing a gun. You got the gun in your hand.
Right.
I'm seeing you kind of drop it, kind of not drop it. No, shoot him. Then make sure that the gun's down. Then you go in and say, okay, let me help you. But no, he shouldn't.
So now, next question.
The cop did everything he was supposed to do.
So my next question, because I've heard people say that. Now, my next question for that is, when you're signed up to be a police officer, when you sign up to join the military, of course, the military is not faced with action every single second of the hour compared to a local cop walking the beat, but you sign up knowing the job and the risk. So my question is, there is a law stating that police officers are not to run through the neighborhoods. For instance, you have your car, like I'm chasing you. I can't do it on a high-speed chase like a movie scene, like a Lethal Weapon, and I'm driving over bridges and stuff, because people can get hurt. So as a police officer, and I wish a police officer was here so I could ask that question for part 2, but when was it with you, if you knew this kid had a gun, you seen him with the gun, because I guess they were having some type of he was shooting at a car. There was some
actually there were the original call came in that there were shots fired somewhere. So that's red flag, high alert.
Yes.
They had already gotten the other police officer had already gotten the 21-year-old on the ground, and then the other one was chasing.
So my question would be, at what point in your dangerous job do you then realize and say, let me call for backup?
I would say his backup had the other person on the ground. And how much time do you have? Is that me echoing? Am I better now?
Yes.
Okay. I think that even under the circumstances where we know we have police officers who are trained to do their job, right? And again, like Specs said earlier, they don't know everything. I've never been a police officer. I've been on the other side of the law where I've gotten stopped by the police, or what, anyhow. So I don't know what they go through. I don't know what that split second is like for me if I had to chase someone down, knowing that there were shots fired and I'm watching them run with a gun. I'm also trying to keep the rest of the community safe, as well as myself safe, my partner, and whoever else. Again, it's easy for anyone to say what could have been done, what should have been done, but we're not there. It's just the same way it's like, oh, well, if I got into a fight, I'm going to do this. You don't know what the hell you're going to do. You don't know what that fight, fight, well,
Fight or flight. Yep.
Right. Again, we have to remember that at the end of the day, yes, they are police officers. And Kia, you keep pointing it out about the I feel. They are still human beings. Are they being I don't know what the language I'm using, trying to look for, but when they go into work, do they have at least like 15 to 20 minutes to de-stress? We don't know what the hell they just went through at home. So now you got a crazy home life. We're in the middle of COVID. You go to work and then you just get prepped on your orders and duties for the day. And then you run into this at 2:00 in the morning with
And that's the thing. And I have to throw the military back in. I always make the comparison. So I was in the Army. You have the Navy, you have the Coast Guard, Air Force, and now, the Marines, Space Force now is a new one. You have many different branches of the military. But even though we have different service, different things, we're still in the military. And that same universal rule will follow in every branch that you go to. If you did a lateral transfer and say, you know what, I was in this branch, but now I want to go over here, whatever, the rules will still be the same. So you cannot say that, because just the same time Adam Toledo died, there was a white man in his truck who dragged a police officer down the block. The police officer is screaming for his life, help me, Jesus Christ, and all these things. There's a camp, people have the cameras out, no one's helping, they're just watching, he's hanging on to the truck. Not one shot was fired. This police officer could have died, been dragged, decapitated, all types of scenarios could have happened to this police officer. No one fired not one single shot. So even if we were going to take this one situation and say, you know what, Adam Toledo, oh my God, the cop did what he was supposed to do, you know what's happening, blah, 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 all the little sentiments that we say, why is it that we don't follow that same routine for everybody? You tell me when you can drag a police officer down a fucking block. Tell me where and what state and what law and what shade do I have to be in order to do that? Because Adam was running, and of course the police, as people were saying, they did the right thing. Well, this guy who just dragged this police officer, what was the story with that? Why didn't nobody shoot him, center mass? Why did not one person shoot him, center mass?
Do we want them shooting him, center mass?
That's a whole other,
want it or we don't.
But here's the thing: the police officer is trained to do something. It's not what we want. We're paying. We're the taxpayers, right? And if they're being trained, we're not over here remaking the training manuals. We're trying to say at the end of the day that there's a double standard. You cannot say, well, Adam and the police officer that shot Adam, you know what? He did the right thing. He did the right thing. But then we look at this other situation where the cop is being dragged down the block and no one's talking about this. I'm just so confused. I'm so confused on one situation why one kid gets shot, but this white man is still allowed to talk about it.
No, we know why the white man's alive. Let's call that what it is, right? But Adam, I know that this is it's such a lack of a better term to come up with right now, a trigger point. And I know that it's maybe an unpopular opinion here, but I'm with Specs on this one, right? Is it a tragedy that this child is dead? It's a tragedy. But you know what, though? It's a tragedy that he was 13 years old in the middle of the night, caught up in some type of shooting even before the police got there, running down an alley with a gun. That's the first tragedy, right? I mean, that's the first tragedy. And we cannot become so blinded by, because I think it waters down the argument of police brutality and police killings if we just lump every single police killing in one. This is the cops being bad again. As far as I could tell, that cop immediately tried to render aid. He immediately called for help. There's no way. How would he know this child was 13 years old? First of all, we keep talking about it like he shot a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. This was, when's the last time you seen a 13-year-old boy? They look like grown men. So this notion.
Then looking at his pictures, this one to me did not look like, no, you can tell this was a very young boy. Even if he wasn't though, Liz.
But then but here's the thing, Dante Wright has just been shot, 20 years old. There is a website for people that don't know, who want to actually get more information on. Unfortunately, it's an interactive website. I just put it down here, and this website here, you literally can just touch and flick, and it just pulls up all the different victims of police brutality. From Eric Gardner, because he wasn't shot, of course, but you know, they did the chokehold and these different things. But here you have Dante Wright, who was shot. He was stopped by officers for a traffic violation. Police tried to detain him for an outstanding warrant. Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter shot him as he was trying to get back into his car. The police chief says it was an accident. But here's this situation. We could sit and say, well, wait a second now. You know, it was this police officer has been working in the system for what, 20 plus years?
Yep.
And she's a trainer. She's never made a mistake. This one mistake, of course, has cost her all this. Look at all the accolades she has. She's been doing her job for so long. Oh my God. She has a good heart. She was just rescuing children a week ago. I mean, there's going to be people to vouch for this lady. I mean, who they're going to have the same people say, well, why was Dante getting into the car? He was clearly outside the car. He had a warrant for his arrest. Why didn't he just put his hands behind his back and go with the officer so plainly, so none of this would even have happened? There would be no mistakes. How do we know Miss Kim Porter didn't have a rough day? She was getting beat by her husband, and this whole thing was just so discombobulated that she said, taser, and she shot. We could just say all these different scenarios for everything. And why about this? And why was Eric Gardner out there sending cigarettes? Only if he wasn't doing Lucy's. I mean, like for me, I don't want to say that all police shootings are bad and they were trying to do some racial profile and these things. But I honestly feel when the police officer said hands up, why didn't you give this kid a second? As soon as he said it, it was the same scenario with Tamir Rice. Within 11 seconds, this boy was dead.
Ooh, not the same scenario. I'm sorry.
No,
not the same scenario.
Not the same scenario. No, not the same scenario that he was a kid and he was in gang banging and all these different things. But I mean that when he pulled up, it was an instant kill.
But that's my whole point, right?
That's what I'm talking about.
We can't start lumping them all together. What happened to this child in Chicago and what happened to Tamir Rice shouldn't be in the same sentence. Again, it's a tragedy that this young man is dead. I'm not telling you it's not a tragedy. I'm not saying he deserved it. I swear to you, my heart is with that family tonight, right? But we cannot put those in the same sentence as Tamir Rice. It's wrong to do so. It does not help the argument. It does not help to fix anything. It's just, I mean, even Dante, you can't put that in the same sentence, right? You can put Dante in the same sentence as the white dude that was dragging the cop down the street. That makes sense to me. Like, we can have that conversation all day. Why is this one dead and this one alive? That's a problem. But the Toledo kid, it's just a tragedy. And we have to sometimes accept that it is a tragedy.
So what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is the reason why it's a completely different type of scenario is because he had a gun in his hand running with it. Is that what you're saying?
He was legit.
I was trying to figure out what exactly. So because he was gangbanging, that's the reason.
Like, I mean, I just think that we should handle it a little differently. Should it still be investigated? Yes, right. Should the cops still be, whatever they do when they put them on timeout pending further investigation? Yeah, they should still go through the whole due process. I just don't know that we should take to the street with pitchforks and torches every single time this happens, because not every single time is it treated. It doesn't deserve the same treatment every time.
Which is true. My two questions that I have, and like I said, I'm going to repeat this one just because I have to make sure that I'm hearing correctly, is because he was gangbanging, this is what makes it a different situation. Is that?
Yes.
Are you agreeing with that too, Specs?
Yeah.
Because he was gangbanging? Oh,
You're on mute.
Okay, go ahead. He was saying something. I didn't hear you. Say it again.
You mentioned a whole bunch of people at one time, so I'm kind of confused. Who are we talking about now?
Right now, we're talking about Adam, Alita.
Okay.
So, but she was saying that I hear an echo.
Mm-hmm.
So she was mentioning that because of the fact that he was gangbanging, it makes it a different type of situation. Is that what you are saying? Saying as well, too, Specs?
No, I'm saying he was running. He had a gun. Only thing I'm saying that he was running. He had a gun. I don't care how old he was. He looked old. I know dudes that were 20 that had the same build as he did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it doesn't matter if he was gangbanging. I don't know what his past was or what he was doing. He was out 2 o'clock in the morning shooting and had a gun, running with the gun. That's it right there. So the other stuff comes in afterwards. Only thing the cop knew, somebody was shooting around. There he is. He still got the gun. I'm telling him, drop the gun. He running with the gun. So he turns. I see the gun. You say he might have dropped it. So he did what he was supposed to do. That's not comparable to somebody that didn't have a gun. It's not fair to compare those two because it's not the same thing at all. So this is 2 o'clock in the morning. You shooting and you running with a gun.
Gangbanging.
So you could have robbed somebody. You could have shot somebody. These are all things that were happening. You were probably shooting at somebody. They don't know. Shooting, running with a gun, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, supposedly, and again, guys, I'm echoing.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. This is still like an ongoing investigation, so we're just speaking off of what we know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I just want to put that out there. But Specs, and I didn't do full research, but the little bit that I did, and it could have turned out different, once new information comes out. But he wasn't the one that was shooting. He was the one that was given the gun because he was 13 for him to hold it, because if he got arrested, he wouldn't do time like the 21-year-old would. And not
how did that cop know that?
I'm not saying that's right.
I understand that, but that's not the facts on the ground. The facts on the ground are shooting, running with the gun. I don't care what he made in school, how much money he had, where his mama from. This is all stuff that doesn't matter on the ground at the time. Shooting, 2 o'clock in the morning, running with a gun. These are only the facts that I'm looking at through the eyes of an officer running after somebody that has a gun in his hand. So I understand facts later of why the dude gave him the gun and all that, and that will give reasoning to what happened. 2 o'clock in the morning, shooting, running with a gun.
So to go to what you just said, 2 o'clock in the morning, shooting, running with the gun. To me, Toledo and Rice are similar in the sense that both officers put themselves in a position where they had no cover and were totally exposed. And me and Cash are prior military. Maybe I'm talking from somebody that has some type of understanding. You do not put yourself out in the open. I mean, you just don't. Like, I know for a fact that Specs and Liz have no military background training. So you haven't been shot at and you haven't been dodging bullets. You have none of that. So I'm talking unless you were in the military, you definitely correct me, or the police academy of some sort. But with that being said, though, if you are engaging, do you find yourself in protection? Or you just kind of out there, you just like, okay, shoot, freeze. And you just know you're not going to hide yourself. You're just completely out there and exposed. So if the cop says to an individual, freeze, put your hands up, and you are completely at that moment of what should I do? Of course, you're going to make the decision of you might have to shoot because you just have no way of covering yourself. You're just out there wide open. I mean, for me, I'm just like, wow. I didn't know it was a Wild Wild West thing going on, but of course, that's the next question I have for a police officer. What type of training do you guys get where you just kind of all out in the open, just here I am? But it says you helped to create a situation where you felt the need to shoot.
Okay, let's flip this one on its head, right? So again, there was a shooting of some sort. Cop shows up, kid takes off with the gun running, right? Let's change this scenario completely, because I think that in our minds we feel like they should always show up to arrest and they should never shoot. Imagine a mass shooting. You got somebody actively shooting people. Should the cops stay in hiding because it would be wrong to shoot and kill them? Or should they come out, put themselves in the open in order to protect the community that they're there to protect?
To answer that question, when they come out shooting, they always have some type of protection. They do not ever come out full open. They're just out here and they're just having this open. When you ever see somebody cover, when they're covering each other, they're covering. They don't just come out so they can get shot with the AK and they're going down. They always have some way of protection.
So stick into that scenario, right? So imagine there's heaven forbid, a supermarket shooting, right? Another one. The perp, because the person hasn't been tried or anything yet, right? So the person you suspect of shooting is now running out of the grocery store with the gun running. This person just did a mass shooting. They've left behind a dozen bodies. Again, heaven forbid. They just shot up this whole supermarket. They run out of the supermarket. They are running through the parking lot. Parking lot's wide open. The cop is there. They believe that this is the person that just laid all these bodies to rest. You don't think that they should take that shot?
I didn't say not take that shot. If we're talking about a situation to that extent, the SWAT team will be there. Tactical shooters. They will have somebody on the top ready to shoot that cop. There's not going to be one single cop or just maybe two, him and his partner, trying to take John Wayne the whole situation. We already said, you made the scenario, taking your scenario, it's a massive shooting in the supermarket, for God forbid, knock on wood. That means that all these people have called it in, they got their videos, they know that there's a perk and he's going crazy, whatever. When I tell you that whole block, the blocks would be on lockdown, ATF, DEA, SWAT team, the regular police, the sheriff county, based on where we are. First, and then does anybody know where this actually incident happened in Chicago? Chicago, New York, California had the best force. When I mean that they spend so much money on their police, it's not they got one man out there and they're like, man, I don't got no good equipment. When I'm telling you they have counterintelligence, all types of stuff, they do not come out shooting blaze John Wayne. Now, of course, I am not a police officer and I cannot tell you like, oh yeah, it happened to me Friday, but I can say that I have been with them when they were doing their drills and their training. I can tell you that when I had trained before, this is the way we cover each other. This is where you clear a room. This is the way you do this. You do not just start chasing people out in the open doing different things. You always, the helicopters with the big spotlights, that's what they're there for, because they can't see at night. So you're calling it in. Hey, we got something going on. He's on foot, blah, 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 male, black, da-da-da-da, giving out the description. That's the reason why you see those helicopters at night with the big spotlight. Not for us to put on a show.
On them, they have to pursue them, right? I mean, do you just say, oh, you know what? Never mind, that's an alley, and just let the kid continue to run with the gun?
But the video clearly shows, and let's read this real quick.
Yeah, that's. I was waiting for. Oh, whoa.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Which one were you doing?
You can read that one. Sorry.
Okay. The video that showed him with his hands up and no gun in his hand at the time he was shot. What he had a minute ago shouldn't matter if I can see that your hands are up and empty. Then we also, I'm just going to go to the next one. And then we don't hold police to the same standard that we hold other professionals, which is that actually is true. Furthermore, there are around 17,000 jurisdictions with different rules. We need national policing.
Yes.
And this
yes, we do.
This is kind of what you and I were even talking about earlier, Kia. Like, even when we're looking at the difference between what one person what people get arrested for and the amount of time that they get. Every state is different. So it's also hard to compare what the protocol is in this state and in this city versus a totally different state and city. It's not always going to be the same. So I'm in New York looking at what's going on in Chicago, basing my uneducated, never been involved in a police chase on the police end opinion on this situation. And it's hard.
So Sacramento, California, year 2018, Stephon Clark, 22, standing in his grandmother's backyard. How was he killed? Officers said they believe Clark was holding a gun. As they shot him more than 20 times, Clark was only holding a mobile phone. The action taken, the district attorney declined to file criminal charges. Clark's family reached a $2.4 million settlement with the city of Sacramento. So in this situation, of course, he had a mobile phone. So there was no gun, there was no gang banging and those things. And I think that we have to take and eliminate. And I think that's something that we do all the time is talk about and I'm not saying you're doing it, Liz, but we do it as a whole. You know, he was gang banging. You know, he ain't no good because I heard he was beating on his baby mama.
No, that's not what I was
saying.
I'm
not saying that you was, but people do that. No. People do that to talk about that. And like Michael Brown. Well, here you got this big guy, right? He comes into this store to buy whatever he's buying, Lucy's or Dutch Masters or whatever, and he's strong-arming the merchandise, and he's, whatever. He was a thug. He was a bully. And look what's happening here. I mean, you have different situations where people are saying, that's why I asked you the question. Are you saying the reason why it's different because he was gang banging? And I asked it maybe 2 or 3 times because I think regardless of what the scenario, let's just say he was legally able to carry the gun. At 2:30, he was taking a walk. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I don't think his background, just because you're a criminal, doesn't mean that you're not. It has nothing to do with
his background. I don't.
Well, you kept mentioning gangbanging. That's why.
No. I actually mentioned it once, right? But it has nothing to do with his background. It happens to be what was happening in that moment, right? The first thing the cops almost always say is, "I was in fear for my life." Here was a cop that logically was probably truly and honestly in fear for his life. He was responding to a call about a shooting at 2-3 o'clock in the morning in a very unpleasant side of town. He's running with the gun down an alley. And the thing is, I think what a lot of us are forgetting, even when we're talking about, it doesn't matter what he had in his hand a moment ago. We watched that video back as common people that weren't there in slow motion. Every time I have seen that video on the media this week, they showed it in slow motion. So everybody now gets to see, you know what that's like? I'm not a big sports person, but I've seen enough games, right? You know, when you watch a game and they're like, well, he was over the line, and like he was out of bounds, and the next person like, he wasn't out of bounds. And then they replay it from different angles and they slow it down and you can actually see that he was out of bounds. And you go, oh man, that was a bad call. Like, it's easy to be a spectator. It's really hard in that moment when things are happening like this. They are not slowed down. They're not slowing it down frame by frame for us to see what really happened. This child was running down a dark alley at that hour in the morning after a shooting with a gun. Yes, the cop did yell some orders at him, and apparently he was complying. Again, this is a tragedy, right? The child was in fact complying, but he dropped the gun, turned around, hands up. The cops see somebody that was just 0.2 seconds ago had a gun, turning around. What do? Imagine that. This person had a gun. Your brain doesn't work as fast as reality does, right? Your eyes have to catch up with what's happening, right? Person had a gun. Granted, he drops it, he turns around. All your body, all you process right then, this person with the gun just turned towards me. Shoot. And he's a dangerous person because remember, there's a shooting happening. A shooting happened. They were there for a reason. These weren't cops strolling down the neighborhood, saw somebody with a gun and decided to talk to him because he had a gun, right? This is a response to a shooting. The person is technically armed and dangerous. He is now turning in your direction down an alley, and it's happening quick. As a human being, don't we deserve to give him the benefit of the doubt and let the investigation happen? I mean, if we watch it slow down and we come to that conclusion, that's fine. It's slowed down. That's like the rep and the bad call. I get it. But in that moment, from that vantage point, how do you know that he saw the gun drop before he turned around? We're seeing it from here. He's not.
I totally understand what you're saying when it comes to, you know, we don't know what that cop was thinking at that time. But I want to say that just as you get to have that liberty to say that, somebody is saying that for Kim Porter and Daunte Wright in his situation. You don't know what she was thinking at the time. They say it was the same situation. but you do not know what that officer was thinking at that
She was
time.
thinking that was a taser? My ass.
But here's the kicker though. Here's the kicker though. Here's the
Okay.
kicker though. Here's the kicker. If somebody has been a trainer for 26 years in the police force and has never had incident, and then all of a sudden today she has incident, you do not know what she was truly thinking. Now, of course, perception is reality. Just like a lot of people receiving, like, oh my God, what's going on? Da, da, da. You just made the statement. We don't know what that cop is thinking. Why can't Kim Porter get the same benefit of the doubt?
I think that she should get the investigation and yada yada yada. I truly do process. That's fine.
Go ahead, Specs.
That comparison, that false comparison, is dangerous. Once you start grouping stuff in like that, you lessen your not progress. What is it? Your cause. So let's say we're talking about Black Lives Matter, and you group one thing like that into something else. Then devil's advocate, you make that young man that sat in the car that just got shot because he's supposed to get shot with a taser, but got shot with a gun. You make him the gangbanger. You compare them to, because your brain is hearing both things, right? So you're hearing both things right after each other. Fox News does as well. So you put both of those together. So one is guilty as the other one. So what happens is they come here. We shouldn't do that. They're going to do that with us. They already do that with us. We should look at this and say, this is this and this is this. Once we start doing this, we already doing their job. So
Well, I can say this. We don't know. Do we know? And but here's the thing though. So and Liz just said due process for everybody. Right? What's fair is fair. So unless somebody on this panel knows, does anybody know what Mr. Wright's warrant was for?
Oh, wait. So going down a quick rabbit hole, and please, audience, can you please do your own research? Because I'm not fully sure about this. From my understanding, I don't know specifically what yes, he had a court date and the court sent the Zoom link to the wrong email address, and it actually came back saying it was not delivered, and that automatically generated a warrant. Because he missed the court date that the court sent to the wrong address. That's how he got the warrant.
I think that the frustration that comes with the whole topic within itself is, we sit back, watch TV or the news or whatever have you, and we see different scenarios happen to one demographic and not the other. So in this same breath, I totally understand what Liz and Specs are saying, or other people who are listening, like, hey, this officer, you don't know what he was thinking. He literally, in his mind, he thought he saw this. Matter of fact, it's 2:30 in the morning. I was chasing this guy. He had a gun, blah, 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 blah. We could go on and on. But at the same time, how many times we do turn on the TV and we see our counterparts have similar situations, shoot up a church, they get offered Burger King. You know what I'm saying? They shoot up. I think actually a lot of the mass shootings, if I'm not mistaken, the actual perp is he's detained. He doesn't die. He doesn't get shot center mass. And that right there, that double standard makes you kind of like, well, what the hell? Now I hear a lot of people, and we've heard it a lot. Well, because they complied. As soon as he shot up the church, they tell him, hey, put your hands up, come down slowly. Now, when you make that statement, well, he had a gun in his hand. So did this guy have a gun in his hand. So he had a semi-automatic weapon, shot up the whole church, huh? And you gave him that opportunity to comply. So that's the frustrating thing for me, is because in these other situations, when you told the perp, hey, bad guy, you shot up a movie theater of 20 plus people, they gave the order and he complied. He's walking out slowly. He has bigger bazookas and all types of weapons. Forget about a handgun and a pistol. He has all this stuff. You can clearly see he has this stuff. The same thing you just said. Well, he shot up what happens if the scenario, they shot up the supermarket and all, they shot up the movie theaters, they shot up this, they shot up this. They complied and you gave him the option to comply. You gave him a chance. Go ahead.
So two things, and I personally don't think it matters, only because you asked, I'm putting it out there.
Yeah,
The reason for the warrant in Daunte Wright's situation was that he failed to appear, because of what Ty said, over possession of a weapon and fleeing the police. Just so you know. Now,
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't think it justifies anything, but you asked, answered, right? In terms of these other people that you're talking about, again, I call bullshit. You know what I mean? I think that they're alive and telling their story because of their complexion, yes. But just because we are kind of trying to turn it into apples to apples, there's a difference between okay, I'm gonna put it down slowly and I'm going to comply versus hey, like there's a huge difference in your response to that. There is night and day. I don't specifically know. I don't remember the video from the movie theater shooting or the church shooting, for that matter. But a lot of times that you see these things with these mass shooters, kind of, sort of, that's how it'll, okay, fine, I'm done. You know what I mean? And that's a real slow, now walk backwards, now, turn slowly or whatever. That's a huge difference in the middle of an alley, a back alley, dark night, everything, and you just drop it and turn right. It's different. It just is. It's wrong. It's different. Both cases.
Just to, before I go into body cameras, just to say this, to end this part of the conversation, and once again, of course, they'll investigate. Of course, they'll find out what's going on. But I really do feel that in this situation, as much as he could have, I guess he was afeared for his life. He could have used his resources, because I've seen plenty of videos when a perp is running, they have that helicopter with the spotlight waking everybody up. I live in a suburban, nice neighborhood, and there were some kids touching people's doors. Do you know how I woke up? Not because the suburban kids was touching my door, because they had the spotlights going through the neighborhoods, because they're not playing those games. When they want to pull out them helicopters to get the spotlight on somebody because there was a shooting in the neighborhood, they can, they will, and they have done it. So in reference to this, for somebody to say, well, Chicago, I don't know if they got any helicopters and spotlights. I don't know if they had enough backup. Of course, we don't know. And through the weeks, we'll find out the developing stories. Did he call help and they just were too late? Did he say, hey, I'm John Wayne and I'm just going to do it myself? We'll find that out. But at the end of the day, from just perception, I'm like, wow, I would have called it in. Now he said, well, it's easy to say what we would have done if we was in that situation. Well, I have been in those type of situations where you had to make a split decision when it came to those type of scenarios, not policing, but emergency situations. Like, are you going to do some John Wayne bullshit or are you going to call for help? Everybody's different. Like I said, I'm not truly sure, but we'll find out on that. Can you go to that last question real quick, Ty? Or comment?
Or the comment,
Yeah.
We have, based on the logic, once he started running, there was never going to be a way he could surrender without being a threat to the officer.
We will find out. No, and then, of course, we will end up finding out what's really going on with that. Go ahead, Specs, what you was going to say?
I forgot, because we told a whole different subject. So, sorry.
Oh, wow.
Nope.
Oh.
Is Specs Specs.
It's bad weather here. I made time out.
Wait, Specs, you're on mute.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, like I forgot.
Never mind.
I forgot. Yeah, I forgot. Go ahead.
Never mind, Specs. It happened.
Yeah.
It happened.
So I was going to make the comment and talk about body cameras. When it comes to body cameras, I know that we first got a taste of just the video footage during the Rodney King incident. Anybody that was alive or old enough to talk about, Rodney King was beat in March 1991. This is something that somebody had on, those big cameras back in the day that they used to have for home videos. Unfortunately, that's what caused the LA riots, if everybody remembered, because, people were upset. The verdict came out.
And he was sodomized by the police. Let's not beaten, sodomized by the police as well. There are a whole lot of other things going on.
Amadou Duella in New York. we could just go on, and that was that website that I pulled it up. It just talks about case after case. But during that time frame was the first time that we've seen that our cell phones can play an active role in a police investigation and telling our story. It's unfortunate for everybody who's ever suffered under any type of abuse from a police officer, but didn't have any type of story to tell. It's just their word against yours. And guess who's going to win in all the situations all the time? But now that we have body cameras, let me ask this question. I was trying to do the research before I started the show. Is it something at the current moment in 2021 where every state has to have them, or it's still kind of, optional?
I don't think it's mandatory, is it? Body cams is mandatory.
They are trying to make it a federal initiative. I'm sorry, is it? Okay. Yeah, they're trying to make it a federal initiative. It's hard because how do you federally mandate local police? So what's happening is, as far as I understand it, the federal government is providing the resources, but it kind of is up to the local municipalities on whether or not they want to use them. Then you have police turning off their body cameras, and you have a bunch of other, mishigosh that's taking place. But in most places, and I think that's one of the directions that we're heading towards. I know the last police reform bill, that was a big part of it, was mandatory body cams if they want to continue to receive those federal funds.
So basically what we're saying is if it ever got to be a thing where everybody was going to get body cameras, it wasn't because the federal government can mandate it for local areas. And then, of course, they would have to be on the same sheet of music of how long they keep it charged and how long they keep it on and who gets it and who doesn't. So once again, I think Ty and Liz, I think we all mentioned it, it's still our own individual. It's not something, one of the comments that somebody had mentioned, there's different policing guidelines everywhere. So it doesn't make a difference what the scenario is. I mean, it's just so unfortunate. I think we have to be able to be on the same sheet of music with this one, guys, because that's the only way that we'll have some type of policies. I'm really, really eager to talk with the police officers that will come onto the show for part 2. I have a lot of questions. The reason why I have so many questions is just because, we do sit here and I can say that we do speculate to a degree. Okay, I had this amount of training, but I never had that much training, or I did this, or I saw this on a show, but I heard this, and we're just not knowing. And it's going to be interesting to talk to police officers in different areas and just to see if their training is the same. And that's kind of crazy because that goes back to the whole scenario of you have a police officer tell you, okay, put your hands up, put your hands down. You better I told you to put them up. And you're like, wait, you're doing one of these numbers. I mean, I can't wait. What are some of the questions, Ty, that you're going to ask these people? I just can't wait for the police officer.
I'm not off the top of my head. I can't say what I'm going to, ask once we have them on. I do know that throughout my 20 years of nonprofit work, I've worked with a lot of police. I was a rape crisis counselor. So Orange County has about 30 to 31, I believe, if I'm still correct, police stations. And I worked with all of them, and they're different. And even within the different police stations, you have the state police that don't get along with the sheriffs, maybe that don't get along with the local over. Yeah. So again, you have the internal disconnect with even dealing with that system. There are a lot of cops that try to do the best they can with the training that they have. I've noticed that we've really hit a different type of climate, and it's forcing people to maybe to go out of that immediate training where it used to be, you chase, you do this, or a certain way to stop. Things are different now. And again, we do have to look at every situation as that individual situation, because you do lose the credibility and the real talk and you know, in regards to how to change things. And on top of that, we also need to take accountability for what we are doing. Why was that 13-year-old boy outside at 2 o'clock in the morning with a gun and or around people that had been shooting? Yeah, okay. So we look at the police and we like to point fingers, but where's our accountability? Where was the parents? Where's the family? Where are the friends? They should be accountable as well. Period. You know? So again, I know I'm going to have questions. I don't know what they're going to be, but I'm curious too. What are they being trained to do past this point? You know, what would that officer had done if he was in that situation? What does it look like to them on that end? We sit back all day and look at videos and then turn it back, look at the video, screenshot, open it up. And like Liz said, what we see, that 2.5 seconds to them is 5 minutes to us because we have time to review and criticize. They don't have the time. They just have. So, you know.
Before we go to that last comment, I want to say, I am so glad that the police officer that put a loaded gun to my head when I was 18, because he thought that I was the one that had a loaded gun robbing a gas station store, took a moment to allow me to obey his command. Because if I had made a move he told me I would have shot you dead in your head. So I am very grateful for the fact that I have the opportunity to talk now at the age of 39 on a platform discussing my scenarios. Because if that police officer did the same thing, because he was in fear for his life, the three guys just robbed and beat up actually the gas station attendant. So there's blood and all types of things happening. And guess what? While they're running, me and my friends are walking. Those police officers just see some black people. They ain't seeing like, oh, it's the guy, the girl. They are scared for their life. A loaded gun was to my head. I am so happy he allowed me to comply. Because at the end of the day, like you say, you don't know what's going on in the 2.5 seconds and this and that. I may not even met you guys and went from there because of the fact that he allowed me to comply. Because if he didn't have been a wrap. Go ahead, Ty, to read those last two so we can wrap it up.
Okay, so we have a former officer on the news said Wright should have been moved to the back of the vehicle per basic police training, preventing him from gaining access.
Okay.
And then we have, if an officer doesn't use proper methods and techniques and it leads to escalation, I think those police should be held accountable. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And if the police are really, really wrong in the way that they tended to that situation, I think they definitely should be held accountable to the highest, because again, you're trained for this. And I know we could look at the training but they're trained. As a civilian, I'm not trained. I am not trained. If I'm going through something and you tell me, I don't know how I'm going to respond. I remember when I almost got jumped at Planet Wings, the woman called her husband and her husband and three grown ass men. These are white people. And they were trying to jump me. I had to position myself by the camera, put my hands up. They called the cops. 5 cop cars came. When they came and my hands were up, the white cop got out of the car and cursed me out. Me.
Wow.
Yeah, I was scared for my life. Yeah, again, are they always right? No, they're not. And do we have our people that have been murdered, and I'm going to use that language, murdered at the hands of a police officer? Absolutely. And then are there ones where the police officer went above and beyond to try to make sure that they did not get off of work that day with a dead body? Absolutely.
Yeah. Specs, I just want to ask you, before the show started, you said it's going to be a hot summer. People are going to get out. It's a lot of things going on. Were you alluding to the fact of, more people protesting or more crime?
Probably just more crime. Of course, more protesting because it's just gonna be a lot going on. So whatever you see now is just gonna escalate. Usually that escalates in the summertime already, so that's not a new thing. But you add COVID, if people couldn't go out last summer or do a lot, there's gonna be a lot more of what last year should have been plus this year. So it's gonna be just a lot. So more mass shootings, more probably cop killing, people killing each other. It's just gonna be more.
Wow. Liz, can you before we go, can you let us know about your shirt and if anybody wants to get one, where they would get that one at?
All right, so you guys know I designed my shirts. We are intentional and unfiltered. And this one right here happens to be one of my babies. It says, maybe target practice shouldn't look like this.
That's deep.
Practice makes perfect, right? So if you practice, what do you expect? I mean, so, you guys can hit me up directly or Kia if you're interested. I swear I am working on getting them uploaded. I'm going to go with Etsy. I'm just working on getting my digital images all in place and going from there. But, it's sad that this is where we are. But the more we can bring attention to it by whatever means necessary, whether that means subscribing to the podcast, wink, wink, right? Or wearing a t-shirt when you're out at the grocery store or at the gym, or having a conversation with whomever will listen to you, especially people that don't look like us. For the longest, they always said, but we don't have that problem in this country. But those problems, they don't exist anymore. I dare them to deny it now. I dare them. So go out of your comfort zone a little bit. Don't harass people. You know what I mean? But if somebody does, because I get it, especially now that I do wear these shirts, where I've had random strangers, particularly white people, I'm just saying it as it is, right? Go, that's an interesting shirt. What makes it so interesting to you? And it sparks a conversation. And you know what? Every spark leads to a flame, right? So that's all we can hope for.
So my last words before we close. I seen somebody have this on social media, and I had to take a screenshot. But they said, hands up, they shoot. Hands down, they shoot. You walk, they shoot. You run, they shoot. You hide, they shoot. You sleep, they shoot. You comply, they shoot. So what are we supposed to do now? At the end of the day, my heart breaks for this young 13-year-old. My heart breaks for Daunte Wright. My heart breaks for Sandra Bland. My heart breaks for George Floyd. My heart breaks for Eric Gardner. My heart breaks for, we can go on and on. Literally, if we were to talk to Tamir Rice, we could go on for a whole nother half hour to an hour naming names of people who have lost their lives because of police brutality, or there was some type of malfunctioning or something. We could put so many labels on it. With that being said, these people were somebody's mother, they were somebody's daughter, they were somebody's father, somebody's friend, a son, whatever you name it. These people were individuals. And then to add on top of it, we got to worry about the vigilantes who want to be the police, the wannabe police. So we have the Zimmermans coming out. We got that drill sergeant that just came there, the Karens. That's what we created these names for, the people that's doing the most. And that's how these situations get created. I am very interested in speaking into police, because my main thing, and I know we were talking about this just recently, we have to start policing our own neighborhoods. We have to start being those individuals who put the spotlight on what's really going on. Because just like you're going to be in my business and you asking me questions, I damn sure won't be in your business asking you some questions, because you will not, on my watch, if I happen to see be somebody who gets hemmed up by the police, because there's ways and there's protocols. I'm not saying to go out there, people, and be the John Wayne of the neighborhood, but of course, know the law for the state that you're in, because now all laws are across the same, but still just be a voice. Do something. Call the police on the police. take some names, some numbers, some badges. I don't know.
My sister does that. My sister actually calls the police on the police.
Yeah. Go live, Facebook Live, all different types of scenarios. Do what you have to do. I have to honestly say there's some things I know that Monique, the comedian, is my last thing. The comedian Monique said that the average African American woman, she was talking about women, but I guess this would apply to men as well, is one step away from going to jail. And I say this is because if I'm walking, I remember there were some police officers and they were beating the crap out of an elderly woman. They were dogging her. If I had seen that, and at this time I didn't have the little one, I just had my older two, I would have went to jail that day. And I probably got dogged too, because at the end of the day, it would go against my own humanity to see a police officer beat the brakes off of an elderly woman. I don't care if she stole a can of beans. I don't care if she wasn't walking fast enough. If you are 2 or 3 guys and you got your little batons or whatever you got going on, and she's an elderly woman, not on my watch, no sir. So I do think that statement is very true. A lot of us are one step away from going to jail, because I cannot sit around and just say, hey, I'll just be the one recording the video, because I couldn't. I honestly couldn't. For George Floyd, I would have been arrested as well. I've been tased. I think he was macing people that day. I could not literally watch somebody die for 9.29 seconds, 9 minutes and 29 seconds. I couldn't. But at the end of the day, this is a heated topic on the Facebook page. People were getting into it, but I asked to stay classy while you get unfiltered. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Do what you do, and we will talk to you soon. Unfortunately, I wish we could say on better terms. Bye, guys.